So we are at JAX London, and I'm happy to welcome Stephen Colebourne here for a little bit of chat about Java 9, and of course you have a session here at JAX London about the Jigsaw project.
That's right, yeah. I'm talking about Java 9 modules, just giving a general introduction to the topic.
So we are deep into the topic, so you can perhaps tell us what's the state of the Jigsaw project right now, what are the good parts, what's still missing, what are the bad parts?
I mean, the nice thing, obviously, is that the project's finished, as in, we got Java 9 out there, so, there was lots of debate, lots of discussion around, what needed to be in there, what didn't need to be in there. Ultimately, we've ended up at a certain point, and, there's the possibility to add new stuff in the future. But I think what we have to do first is we have to spend a little bit of time as a community using Java 9 in anger, figuring out, what works, what doesn't work, what are the problems we're going to hit. And at that kind of, once we've done that for a few months, maybe a whole 6-month release, then we can actually start to feed back in terms of what the real problems that need to be solved or tackled. There's been talk about, do you want to have multiple modules within one jar file? I've seen a use case where that might have been useful, but useful enough to worth worrying about? I don't know. Tooling like Maven and so on is only just about catching up with modules now, again, because Jigsaw was completed so late in the process. So we're still, as I say, we're still figuring it out. So there's not going to be I don't think there's any immediate rush to add new features into the Jigsaw train at this point.
We can say that there are two parts. One part is the modularization of the JDK, and the other part is Jigsaw as a module system for applications.
That's right. And I mean, ultimately, the modularization of the JDK, in theory, that could have been completed and finished and released a while back. In essence, the hard part was getting something which was perhaps usable as a module system for the wider community. Now, in theory, it's usable for the wider community. We don't yet know whether in practice it is. There are certainly groups of people who've used with modules before and module systems before who say it's just not good enough and it's just not going to be suitable. At the moment, I'm still trying to modularize the basic set of modules out there so that we can move up and get people writing some module definitions. But it's not yet clear how widely adopted it will be.
Okay. So we also heard a lot of really interesting announcements last month about Java 9 and the future of Java. Especially one thing is the release cadence will be much faster. We'll have 6 monthly releases.
I mean, people had these 3-year releases for the past goodness knows what, where dates have slipped, and ultimately, the bigger the release, the more likely it is going to slip. So, they could have chosen to go to yearly releases, but I think 6 monthly is probably wise, as in, if you miss 6 months, another 6 months to wait is no big deal. And to be honest, from everything I can hear, everybody's pretty positive about it in terms of, 6 monthly releases are going to give us a lot of benefits, the ability to pick stuff up. The biggest complaint, one that I've raised and other people have commented on as well, is just the version numbering scheme that they happen to have chosen. Seems a bit odd. But that's in many ways that's a detail. In other ways, it's important detail. But I think the main thing is we get our 6 monthly releases, and we can build a lot on that.
But do you think we head towards a world where we have a lot of fragmentation about because of this difference and much of these different versions?
I mean, undoubtedly. Undoubtedly, it's the case that the more releases you have, different people will be on different releases. And if there is an increase in the number of language changes, then obviously that will again cause fragmentation. The nice part is, Java 8 is a great baseline. Everybody wants to be on Java 8. Now, of course, not everybody is on Java 8. Loads of people are still stuck on versions before that. But the great thing is that there is a great desire to be on Java 8. There's no great fuss to be on Java 9. Nobody's that fussed about Java 9, really. In the same way as, whatever the next few releases are called, those, there will be reasons to move to them, but, Java 8 will satisfy us for a good few years until there's something really big and important that would drive people to upgrade beyond it. So you'll see the community split, basically, into, smaller companies, the tech-aware companies who'll just move up as quickly as they can, and the really conservative large enterprises will pick 8 and stick with it for 5 years.
Yeah, the other thing is that we'll have long-term releases, long-term support releases every 3 years, right? So do we head towards a world where we have stable releases, this long-term support releases, and let's say more experimental releases, this feature releases?
I mean, in theory, that's perhaps what they're trying for. Long-term support releases are not something that particularly appeals to me because I'm not paying an enterprise fee for support. For those companies that do, that's only the fact that there's a long-term support release is only going to be part of the reason to consider whether to upgrade to that version as opposed to any other version. The set of language features that are in that version of that LTS version will be just as important as the fact that it's supported, I suspect. No point in upgrading if there's nothing you want.
Yeah, I guess we have to see how this works out in the coming months.
Exactly.
Probably.
We don't know yet.
So let's get back to technical stuff. I mean, we used to talk about Java 10. Now it's probably Java 18.3, Java 18.9.
Who knows? Yeah.
But what feature-wise, what can we expect from the next releases? There are some interesting chaps going.
There's lots of things being talked about as being features. I mean, the main one that's already been committed is local variable typing. So that's where you get to declare your local variables as var rather than declaring a type each time. And there are upsides and downsides to this feature, but it plays well with other things that are coming as well. So it's one of those things that even if you're not in love with that feature on its own, once you see it with other features that are coming, it kind of just becomes a have-to-have feature as opposed to a near feature.
Okay. Well, what is a good use case for these value types? Can you perhaps explain a little bit of the benefits?
Well, I mean, ultimately, so value types is what's coming in the long term. So local variable type inference is like a short-term thing. We've got pattern matching, that's probably, again, a medium-term thing, as in, the simple way to explain it is enhancing the switch statement and allowing it to do a lot more things. And then beyond that, we're looking at value types. So value types is just, when you look at the memory usage of Java programs, they're not terribly efficient. Because every time you hop, every time you have a link from one object to another object, that object could be somewhere else in memory entirely. And so those hops in memory allocation terms and efficiency of lookup just tend to be very inefficient. So the idea of value types is just to pack that memory down into a much more efficient range of memory, and particularly when you're dealing with lists and arrays of these things, you can then pack them down as well. And for high performance use cases, it can be really critical to do that. What comes with value types is potentially a whole range of other syntax around it. So you need to have a short syntax for defining a value type, but then perhaps you need to have other syntaxes around that, because otherwise you don't want people to use a value type simply because it has a shorter syntax. So you might have to have a short syntax for other things that aren't value types in order so people don't abuse the feature just to get shorter syntax. So there's an awful lot of things to think through around value types. So value types are 5 years away in all likelihood.
Okay. Okay, so the current state is not really.
The current state is that they're being worked on, and if they're halfway through a program of being worked on, well, that's good. But there's still a lot more to do.
Okay, so let's expect or let's wait what the future brings.
I think the nice thing is that there's lots going on in the world of Java, and there's lots of investment in core Java. So over the next 3, 4, 5 years, hopefully we'll see quite major changes, which will be positive for developers.
Okay.
Thank you.
Approach, good future.
Yep.
Thank you very much for being
Cheers.
here.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for watching.
Cheers. Thank you.